I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am. I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am. I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome along then to this round number 6 of F5 here on the PC for PSGL. My name is Daniel Gilligan. Alongside me in the virtual commentary box today is, of course, Reese Gregory. Reese, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing splendid today, and do you know why I'm so splendid today, Daniel?
Oh, I couldn't possibly guess. No, tell me more.
We're going to Monza, one of my favourite tracks to commentate. One of the tracks that the last, there's a little statistic from me, the last 4 times I've commentated here, I've had some form of chaos and brilliant driving from all the times I've commentated, and it's I love seeing it. Plus, it's just such a fun track to drive.
Absolutely it is, yes. Monza, of course, it's turn 1 and 2, the Rettifilo chicane, rather, is known for its first corner shambles on the first lap, as everybody barrels in and then suddenly realises, oh yeah, no, there's going to be a bit of a concertina effect here. Oh no, there's a car. smack, and there we go. But yes, it's obviously a great circuit. You get to see some good overtaking rounds here. You get drivers constantly in one another's DRS and therefore making moves all of the time. It's going to be interesting to see then around here. I mean, obviously the prevalence of 0-0 wings is something that has crept its way into the meta of this game, and therefore of all of the various circuits, the Temple of Speed in Monza is the one most likely to have that in use, shall we say. So it's going to be a mishmash here and there of different feats, I'm sure, and I think as well going to be an awful lot to do with your management of ERS, because of course there's not many big heavy, in fact I'd go so far as to say there are no heavy braking zones on this circuit. There are sort of medium and light braking zones headed into various chicanes. Maybe you could argue turn 1 and 2 heavy braking zone there, because of course you've got that big stop, but then of course an awful lot of drivers just miss turn 1 altogether, so you could argue that maybe they're braking not enough. But there we go. So really 1 or 2 areas where you might be able to regenerate ERS, and then the rest of it is all going to then be down to what you see in terms of the drivers just managing that ERS. In terms of our standings, well, so far it is a change at the top for the first time this season. And or rather the second time this season, but also the second time that this particular driver has gotten to the top, and that is of course Vincent Nyquist, who's been able to get themselves up into that first place position after a reasonably good result last time out, or at least good as far as their direct championship rival was concerned. Fionn of course having a horrible mare of a time in Suzuka in Japan, and Vincent also suffering from the changeable conditions and safety cars and all these other various bits and pieces that came into play. But yeah, ultimately, it was a new race winner this season. We had Roman taking the checkered flag on that occasion.
Absolutely, and I tell you what, yes, we're talking about Vincent and Fionn. They're at the top. They're fighting amongst each other. Both McLarens definitely scoring away as well, as McLaren are heavily leading this championship. But we can't rule out Dimitri just yet. Like, he is 15 points behind the leader, so he's only 13 points behind second place. So there is potential for a couple of good races from Dimitri that he could jump back into this. And we know that he's a type of driver that performs well from a bad qualifying spot. From the get-go in Mexico, he went from P9 to P4 just off the start alone, and then demonstrating similar in Japan. I think he started P6, I want to say, jumped himself up to P3 and was able to keep himself in a good position. Now, unfortunately, I think it was strategy that let him down, and he would drop down to get 0 points in the last race. But effectively, he's not out of this running. I tell you who is though, Daniel. Jerry Van Bussel in the Williams. Unless the top 3 magically don't perform at all, Jerry Van Bussel's not in this fight anymore, and he's not going to be, not even in contention really for top 3.
It's, I mean, it's an interesting point. I mean, there is a relatively large gulf in points there that you can see, but as we've seen plenty of times, both in sim racing and in Formula One itself, I think that if all the stars align, and the planets as well, we'll chuck them in there as well, I suppose, then potentially you could see something in the way of some improvement for Jerry Van Bussel, and therefore them being able to get back into this championship fight, if in particular those, as you've mentioned, those top 3 start to have all sorts of incidents. And when we take a look at that current championship standings, we are looking at Dimitri, Fionn and Vincent up at the top there. And of those drivers, of course, Dimitri didn't score last time out, ended up finishing at the back of the field of all of the drivers that finished the race. Fionn ended up finishing just inside of the points, and Vincent was off the podium entirely. Now, Jerry ultimately didn't manage to then secure a great position themselves. They came 10th on that particular occasion, scoring just the 1 point, so that gap to those at the top has increased after that last race. But it's those sorts of races where they need to really capitalize, really bring home the big points on those days when their championship rivals are then in all of a flutter, shall we say. Now, one thing I would point out as well is that with Jerry's points gap, 25 points and another 7 rounds to go, including this evening, of course, then, you're looking at just 1 DNF for each of those 3 drivers and 1 win for Jerry, and then all of a sudden he's back in it with then just a points gap of there or thereabouts around. What's that going to be? Damn you, GCSE maths! Why do you fail me now? About sort of 9 or 10 points or so. There we go. So it's yeah. I think that Jerry maybe not one to count out just yet, but certainly if the run of form continues that we've seen from the two McLaren drivers and from the Alfa Romeo driver of Dimitri, then of course that's going to be a fairly closed off top 3 fight, shall we say. Now, in terms of Dimitri themselves, that then brings me neatly onto my next point, and that is with the result of penalties and so on after Japan. Now, according to the stewards, they have had a chat. Jerry Van Bussel has also been into the stewards' room, having caused a collision with Days Rhombus. They received a 5-second time penalty, 2 points on their license. Then with Days Rhombus and Fionn, Fionn got 2 license points and 5 seconds added to their race time for causing a collision. And then Dimitri, as we were saying on the broadcast, ended up having an issue in the race, once again having a tap on another driver, using them as their brakes essentially, which is not the first time we've seen this in combat with Dimitri. They are a very quick driver in this division, clearly, being in that top 3 fight, but a bit hot-headed under pressure, I think, and in a desire to get forward on the grid, things end up going all awry. So as a result, 10 seconds added to their race time after that collision, and 3 license points. In the end, the 10 seconds didn't really matter, because of course they do end up having those. They were back of the grid rather, but as I say, all of that, of course, we've now gotten into the qualifying session. So let's take a look then at what's happening there, and we've got the track map up at the moment as well, of course. So we've got this multi-cornered circuit here at Monza. We've got all those various corners that we will name as we go around. Currently having a look at Fionn on the circuit, and they are currently headed through, I believe that's Curva Grande. It would help if I got the map up, wouldn't it? That would make my life a lot easier in terms of figuring out where they are on the circuit. I believe that's Curva Grande at least.
Yeah. It is Curva Grande into Della Rocha chicane, or the second chicane if you hear me abbreviate it, through the Lesmos. So this is Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2. Very easy areas actually to catch a load of oversteer, invalidate on that section of the track as well. Same with Lesmo 2. Again, if you put too much power down, you end up spinning. And then we go down one of the DRS zones. It's quite a short one. It's not too big, too long. And then through the Ascari S's. Now, individually, yes, these corners have a name, but generalized, this is the Ascari chicane. Take too much curb here, you will then spin the car, and again, taking too much exit is an invalidation of the lap. And then round Parabolica, which apparently has a new name, if I'm not mistaken.
Alboreto Corner, I believe. It was renamed to a couple of years ago, I want to say, or maybe 1 year ago. Time flies, of course, when you're having fun in the world of Formula One. But yes, I believe it is now Alboreto Curve, or Curva Alboreto, as the Italians would say. That's not my best Italian accent, but we'll park that one for now. So yeah, as we watch on board, then that's Fionn starting their lap. And now on they go. So through the Rettifilio chicane, then the Curva Grande, straight after that, keeping nice and tight to the inside, not electing to take that wider entry there, and even tight on exit as well. So then headed down towards the next chicane. And then there we go, the Della Rocha chicane, nicely navigated there and using as much exit curb as they possibly can, and then headed through the Lesmos. Of course, McLaren's and the Lesmo corners have something of an uncomfortable relationship. 2009, of course, Lewis Hamilton mathematically was out of the title fight when they crashed around the Lesmo corners during the race. And then, of course, John Watson in 1981 ended up having a great big crash on the second Lesmo exit, which proved that carbon fibre chassis in Formula One were very safe. So 18 months later, it was then every team on the grid trying to make their cars out of carbon fibre. McLaren, of course, bringing that technology to Formula One in 81. Through Alboreto Curve we go then with Fionn, after navigating the Ascari chicane and blasting up towards that final turn. Up towards the line we go then, and it will be DRS open, I would assume. No DRS open. So they've decided to keep the DRS closed, or maybe there's a glitch on my side, not entirely certain, but as you'd expect, they go to the top before then Jeremy ends up coming across the line and beating them by 0.2 of a second. Vincent Nyquist then comes across the line, and surprisingly, for the driver with the most poles in this division so far this season, goes third.
you mentioned about the DRS not opening before the start-finish straight. That's because the DRS is actually just slightly after the start-finish, so you won't get the DRS going down on the exit of Parabolica. But we're currently watching Dmitry Minik. He's not on a lap. Oh, he's bailed. I was going to talk about lap times. Now, F1, we saw in Q3 for them, dropping down to 18.6s. Now, I was initially going to say low 19s, maybe a 19.3 is where we're going to see some drivers get some times. But already a 19.1 from F5 stands out quite a bit and says we're out here for a good qualifying session and possibly with potential dropping into the 18s.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely a possibility with 13 minutes to go in the session as we get a yellow flag in Sector 3. No doubt a car just moving to one side for faster cars to go past and set their laps. But yeah, with this amount of time left in the session, track evolution is quite strong, quite powerful on this year's game. So if Jeremy ends up having another great app later on in the session, we can definitely imagine that they would get down into the 18s. It's a very, very good first statement from them. Alexander Johansson has then been able to jump up into third place and do incredibly well as a result of that. And yeah, interestingly though, one thing I've just noticed this very second is that and it's as though you've read my mind. We've gone to the Mercedes of Maceo, and in the other Mercedes car is Sally, who's returned after being absent last race. But that means then that Franek is no longer in a Mercedes. Now, Franek were in a Mercedes last race, but was that not their assigned car? Were they always Aston Martin? They happened to hop in the Mercedes last time round?
I'm not sure. I would have to double check to see who was assigned what car, etc., etc. But I know Salah is a reserve driver for sure. So welcome back, Salah. Glad to have you back as he sets a purple first sector. So what a way to enter this race. Race says, ooh.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Okay. Good start. But even before the Lesmos actually claim a driver, he decides, nah, this isn't the right corner. So yeah, it's good to have you back, Salah, and I hope to see more as we watch Kozzy. Now, Kozzy, statistically, he's in 7th right now, if I've remembered rightly. He isn't the highest position driver without a podium. There is another driver above him. I can't remember for the life of me who that is. But Kozzy has been performing really well in this mid-pack. I still want to see this driver get onto the top 3. And he's purpled his first sector. So are we going to see it from Kozzy? He's consistently in this mid-pack. He's consistently getting points. Are we going to get a podium Kozzy?
Well, it's, I mean, in Formula 1, anything can happen, and it usually does, as the late, great Murray Walker once said. As we head down towards the Ascari chicane now, I've noticed as we've been on board with Kozzy throughout this lap, that there's been a tendency for oversteer in that car. Just the back end, just stepping out here and there on little points around the circuit. But of course, it's those little points that will then add up into a big difference in time, particularly through the Lesmos. I noticed that as well. So through Alvarez, I'm going to call it Parabolica, I think. I'm just going to keep on using the old name. But through the Parabolica we go then, and it's P4 for Kozzy. So ahead of Vincent Nyquist. Vincent here, the pressure is on, and currently on their outlap to get started, just about to come through the Parabolica, in fact, to get that started off. So Vincent Nyquist, our pole king so far this season, is about to get cracking on, as we're also having a look at Joe Van Bussel. Whereabouts are they able to pop themselves? And they pop themselves into P11. So that's, again, not what you'd be wanting to see if you're a Jerry Van Bussel fan. No. And they are trying to get themselves back into that championship fight, but with a qualifying performance like that, that's not really going to end up happening.
Not at all. We're going to ride on board with Vincent Nyquist. And already, we're seeing a couple of drivers using the Curva Grande inside curb quite a bit. That is very common. You got to cut as much as you can on the first chicane. Well, the first of the curbs is... Oh, who's that spun? So that's luckily
that's
Vincent...
an Alpha Tauri.
Yeah, luckily Vincent didn't have to dive or abort any lap, so he's able to continue. But definitely the heart rate's going through Lesmo 1 and 2 cleanly. And again, trying to use as much as the track, shorten the track as much as you can as Elliott retires. So that was Elliott who spun. And oh, too much curb with the first of the Scari S's, and you can see the car got out of shape on the exit as well. So Vincent, he's got another potential 2 runs here, but he is under pressure as Fion is wanting to take this championship quite early, putting himself in P1 with a 119.0. And I said, are we looking into the 18s? There's your answer. We're getting close.
We are getting close indeed. It's just something to, just something which we've got some messages in the chat now from Elliot saying that, well, they're saying that they'll restart the session, but I mean, their reasoning for that is that the track is at a different time to that which they practice, so I'm not sure that's necessarily a valid restart reason.
A different time to where they practiced? I'm sorry, but I've done my stewarding in the past. That's not a really strong reason, as a lot of them are leaving. Yeah, Vincent Nyquist just left. So somehow that's been put through. We're 8 minutes into the session. I would have deemed that, because what, it's an 18-minute session, right?
Yes, yeah,
so
18 minutes in total.
I guess you can question we're just shy of the halfway point. So that's the only string you can pull to say, yes, okay, this is what's happening, but I would need further reasoning, in my opinion, from a stewarding standpoint, which is what I'm looking at this right now. I think we need more, and I am going for you guys. Oh wait, it's desync.
Oh, it's
desyncing. So
well, is this not because though that Elliot, as the host, has already left the session? So by crashing and then getting frustrated and then saying to everybody, "Oh well, there's no good because the time of day is different. Let's restart." Is that then not what's causing the desync, causing the migrating host issues? That would be my guess. Yeah, that's unless that's official PSGL policy. As you're moving about there, Reese. Oh, look at that. But unless that's official PSGL policy that it needs to be specified times of day slots for the races themselves, that strikes me as perhaps a little bit of an abuse of power, perhaps, because the driver who is the host and who has made that decision has binned it and then has decided, do you know what, we're going to restart. I'm not entirely convinced there, but there we go. So everybody is quitting, so we'll get the invites back into the session in a moment. Hopefully it will not take them too long to get started again. But from that initial flurry of times that we saw in qualifying there, it looked as though advantage Fion and the rest of the grid, and I was, well, eating my words, frankly. From before the stream went live, I must confess, I thought that this was going to have Vincent written all over it in qualifying. They've been the pole king so far this season, and they looked like they were really struggling out there.
Yeah, but you also have to remember, Vincent was pushing on some decent laps, but he did invalidate the lap quite early on, so we didn't fully get to see true pace performed by him. So come maybe the next round, because they're going to have again another 18 minutes to try their best, we might see some better pace from Vincent. But to be honest, the Templar Speed, and a lot of the drivers say this, it's an RNG style track in the sense that it's anyone's game, because anybody could get a good lap in, but there is still that element of skill. So I'm unsure, but I'm having a quick read of the rules. Disconnecting during I'm trying to find the section.
So I can help you out there. So in the F5
here we go. Actually, I just found it.
There's been a PSGL season 31 briefing for the drivers and for the hosts, and that says that session start time will be set to midday to visibility issues. Now again, if that's if that's the policy, then fine, sure, but we could have seen that from the very get-go. And so I think that there's a bit of some questionable thinking has gone on there, because surely this is one of these things where the drivers who've gone out and been competitive are all going to go, well, no, I was being competitive, and then all of a sudden the host has crashed their car and then quit the session and said to everybody, let's restart because the time is not right. So I don't know. Personally, that doesn't quite sit right with me.
Sessions under appendix. So I'm if you don't know what I'm doing right now, I'm literally got the official rule book up. So sessions can be found under appendix B, which I'm trying to get to. Here we go. Let's have a look. So quick weather dynamic session start time realistic. Forecast approximity accurate. Now, this is where, I think I might have worked a couple of bits out here. So we got a little bit of a dilemma here. I like this. Nothing in chapter 2 of the race book stating race lobbies and settings states about any form of weather conditions. Now go to the next section, chapter 3, which is game related issues. Does not state anything else regarding weather. The actions taken in events of a collapse, split, glitch, or whatever can trigger anything. New lobby settings, which is going to be critical as well for now. If qualifying is restarted, dynamic weather will be used. So that can change. It could become a wet qualifying now. But nothing is stating that the lighting conditions is the problem. Just because it's gone to a more later evening section, it's not actually in the rules. It just says accurate, and I think it does come slightly later evening in Monza for normal racing, just slightly. So possibly it's hit and miss. They might be reading somewhere further down in this, but we will definitely question it, because the only bit that they have is session start time is realistic. It's the only bit. But even if you had the quick weather is dynamic, so yeah.
Currently, this weather on the settings here is currently saying custom. Now, I would hope that that's because they've not finished setting up just yet, because currently it looks like we're going to go racing in Bahrain. But yeah, so it should be. So we should be at midday, and we should be on dynamic weather, as you say. But this makes for absolutely excellent spectator support. I apologise once again, everybody, that F5 can't seem to get a lobby started on time. It seems to be a recurring theme these last couple of races, but there we are. So hopefully they will get everything sorted in the next couple of minutes, and we'll have some racing to actually talk about here. But to go near halfway into the session without then. In fact, actually, no, it must have been over halfway into the session, because there's only 7 minutes remaining. So, yeah, over halfway through the session, and then at that point suddenly go, oh no, it's wrong. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. It does look like the weather settings are now changing, and there we go. We are now at dynamic, so that's the main thing.
I'm still investigating. I'm trying to find anything, because I love rules. So anyone doesn't know. Give you actually a little fun fact about myself, actually.
Okay.
I am actually looking to apply to be an official steward.
Yes, you've been telling me this behind the scenes.
Yes, so I was lucky enough to meet the president of the FIA, Mohammed something, whatever his name is. I know he's Mohammed. That's the only bit I know. But I got to meet him at the Formula E. He directed me to Motorsport UK, so hopefully, assuming Motorsport UK gets back to me, I will be looking to get my officiator's license and pop down to a few races. So this type of stuff really interests me. I love the technical ruling, the ins and outs, because it's what makes up kind of a little bit of the politics behind F1, and that's the only section of politics I like, is the rulings. So hence why my face is lit up with white with a document that I find very intriguing.
Absolutely. Well, there we go. Everybody has learned something new with with that. I've just got to let somebody know that I am currently busy.
Well, how many people are in this lobby? Do you have numbers on that?
How many in this lobby? Well, the last time I looked, we had all 20 drivers. In fact, yes, as I bring up the session now, we've got ourselves loading in. So hopefully this time there's going to be no more excuses, and we can just go racing and go qualifying for this one. So there we are then, folks. We are now getting back into it, which is the main thing.
Absolutely, and I feel we need a little reminder. It's been a hot minute. Daniel, do you mind reminding us what track we're on?
Yes, absolutely. We are at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, and it is the Temple of Speed. This is then the part of the world in which speed is viewed as a religion, much like Ferrari is as well. We've got, of course, multiple corners taking us around this several kilometers long circuit. I don't have the track map in front of me, so I can't tell you just how many, but it's then, of course, got the Variante del Rettifilio, we've got the Della Roggia chicane, we've got the Lesmos, we've got Ascari, we've got Parabolica, or Alboreto if you're so inclined, and, of course, the Curva Grande that links the two chicanes at the start of the lap. So, lots to play for here, not very much elevation as well. You've got a little bit that goes down and then back up and out again. We're on the rundown from the second Lesmo to Ascari, but apart from that, pretty flat circuit. So it obviously then lends massively to straight line speed, and so we are likely to see low wing setups and drivers going for the full send lap around here.
Absolutely, and once again, just like the first qualifying session, Fion's first out. So he's eager to set a mark, to set a benchmark, to get early, and to say to everyone else, look, I was championship leader here. I will remain, I'll reclaim my throne back and to my desired position. But as mentioned before, Vincent invalidated 2 of his laps, and that critically meant that we didn't really see his true pace. He was about half a second off. No, he got 1, but it was not quick enough, but he invalidated the first. Half a second off the pace. There's definitely more out of Vincent, and we know that.
Absolutely, yeah. So here we are then. One McLaren out on circuit at the moment, and the other one has now joined, well, I actually joined quite a while ago, onto the circuit, as it turns out. They've just gone through the not Curva Grande, the corner after that, the Della Roggia chicane, that's the one. I'm going to get my Rettifilios and my Della Roggias mixed up at some point. I'm just going to warn everybody about that now. So, through Ascari, we go then, on board with the McLaren. Of course, this, whilst we mentioned earlier on that McLaren have had their moments with the barriers at this circuit over the years, they've also had a great deal of success, of course, having won the Italian Grand Prix, their first win since 2012 last year. Woo! They're also the only team last year to get a 1-2 finish across the entire season. Despite how competitive Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were in their respective teams, their teammates never appeared second place when they took a win. And vice versa, I suppose, because, of course, Checo Perez and Valtteri Bottas did make their way onto the podium. On the top step of the podium, I should say, at various points in the season. So whilst other teams floundered, McLaren flourished here at Monza. And that is, if we were to base the Constructors' standings purely on the best result of one weekend, then McLaren would have been Constructors' champions last year. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't quite work that way. So there we are then. And Fion then goes through this next part of the circuit, then through the first Lesmo here, nicely able to hook it up through there, and then they head through the second, and there we go. That's some textbook driving from them there, just hooking down into the apex nicely before then headed out towards the exit curb afterwards, and then down the hill we go now up towards the Ascari chicane, and a little bit of a dab on the brakes, then dropping down just 3 gears into 5th before then powering on through, making it their way up into 6th and 7th gear by the time they get to the exit, and then onto 8th as they go on the back straight now up towards the Parabolica, where they will have one last dab on the brakes here before then chucking the car in, trying to keep the line as straight as possible as they head through here. And I say that, they actually then cut back onto the inside quite strongly there, and up to the line. It's a 19.3 as their first effort, so that is not bad at all, around about where their pace was on the first runs earlier on.
It was round about the pace, but the fastest time was a 19.0. Was the last time, but that was after track evolution had built in. Vincent Nyquist, there we go, puts himself in P2. So now we're seeing the 2 McLarens squaring up and almost, proper puffing their chests out between each other. We've got both Alfa Romeo. So Dmitry Minik, again, he's taken an extra lap. So we saw that last time. He almost took an extra lap. So whether he's not got the heat in the tyres is questionable. Jeremy Van Bussel didn't get a good qualifying in the first attempt. He will put himself into P7, but it's going to be Yannick Van Ez, 19.2, as Alexander Johansson goes 19.206. So it goes a little bit faster again for the AlphaTauri. So early stages, the drivers are trying to push hard.
They certainly are, yes. And so there we are. Then we've got Yannick and then Johansson setting lap times, get themselves up into P2 and P1 respectively. And that's not a bad first showing at all on this first set of tyres and this first run in the restarted qualifying session. But now then, in terms of who else is on the circuit and could be doing some good lap times for us here, well, we've currently got Roman here, race winner last time out, of course. They are now coming down into the last corner, and they've got their car behind them there. Who was that? It was one of the AlphaTauris. It was Elliott, in fact, just weaving their way around on the back straight and not getting out of the Aston Martin's way. Now, has that compromised them? It may well have done. They are 3/10 off the ultimate pace, and whether or not they lost any time there having to avoid the swerving AlphaTauri, that's something which, of course, I'm sure will go to the stewards room after the race. But there we are then. So Elliott now starting a lap themselves. Let's take a look at what they're able to muster then, see if there's any mistakes this time. And if there are, if they then decide to call for a lobby reset as well, to just throw that extra curveball in there for the rest of the drivers. You won't get a time if I don't get a time. So into the Della Roggia chicane they go then. It's a purple first sector for them so far, so they've at least got some pace here. And now, as they head into the Lesmos, this is where the proof is going to be in that pudding. So on they go through the second Lesmo now. And the car looking relatively balanced. There doesn't seem to be any major oversteer or understeer on that car at the moment. And then keeping nice and tight to the inside, of course, to then make that run all the way down towards the Ascari chicane, which is just here. Onto the brakes into 6th gear, so not quite as low as we were seeing from other drivers earlier on, going all the way down into 5th, but still getting up into 6th gear, 7th gear rather, by the time they get to the exit, into 8th, then relatively quickly after that on the back straight. And now as we power down towards the Parabolica turn, they hook the car up on the inside, have a little bit of a touch of the curb there that might have unsettled the car, unless of course they are running the game at 60 frames per second or lower. And then up towards the line they go. It's P13 for Elliott. So after a very promising first sector, all the pace has gone away.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm not sure where he could improve, but I tell you who definitely needs to put a lap on the board is this man right here, Dmitry Minik. He's we know he's not a one-shot quali type guy. Qualifying is definitely not for him. He much prefers the actual racing. Is he a pushy driver? Yeah, we've seen him in the stewards room quite often, and he needs to be careful because too many penalties will lead up to an actual ban to the season, and I know that with experience of my own. That being said, looks to be a fairly decent start, keeping the first chicane nice and smooth, no rear end kicking out, no looks of sniffs of understeer. It's not a purple though, so running a little off the front runner's pace, but through the second chicane, again, keeping it tidy, cutting as much as you can. Lesmo 1, and ooh, yeah. He's luckily kept it out of the wall, and I think his front wing is good. But again, Lesmo 1 taking its first victim for today.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is a corner which, if you hook it up, you get your tyre just over that inside curb and essentially use it to slingshot your way around the corner, then it's a very forgiving corner. It's quite easy to do, in fact, but then it's when you don't quite get it right, when you then get out onto the marbles or you touch some of the grass on exit or even some of the gravel in some instances, that's when then you really start to struggle. But one driver not struggling at the moment is the one on your screen at the moment, that being, of course, Fionn Mackie. Sorry, I just had a brain fart there because all of a sudden I realised that I'm watching this and there's no sound and I couldn't understand why. So pause and unpause the game and there we go. I've got sound back. But there we go. Down towards the Ascari chicane then we go in this McLaren and then just chucking the car in then. How is this going to look in terms of the sector split times? Well, it's actually the sector split times already been and gone. So away they go. Currently, they're looking very quick indeed. They've improved by 1.6 tenths so far this lap. So it's good. Whether or not it gets them all the way there or not, I'm not entirely certain because, of course, we've got this last sector to do. If they compromise anywhere, then that could lose them that time and then lose them that position at the top. Where do they go? It is the top anyway. It's 1:19.139. So that was not a bad effort at all there from Fion. But one driver hoping to beat them in just a couple of moments' time that we have switched to as well is Vincent Nyquist. So in the other McLaren, up towards the line goes the Papaya car and then decides, no, I'm going to the pits instead. So that's a shame for them, but perhaps just measuring up what was possible and where their delta was, if they felt that, well, there's not going to be much room to improve here, so let's just get back into the pits. That saves us all the time of doing an in-lap, and we can go for potentially an extra try. So that's the McLarens done for the time being. We now go back to Dmitry Minich and whether or not they're going to be able to get themselves a decent time here. But as I say that, they have invalidated their lap time and destroyed a sign. What a vandal. Oh dear.
That is such terribleness. Vandalism 101 as Alex Johansson puts a 19-0. Wow, pulling that one out of nowhere as Norby is also going to start his lap. So Norby in the top 3, what can he do? It's not a purple no, he's not on a lap, he's a second down. We're going to take that back. My good boy Cozzy, is he on a lap? He's invalidated his lap. Is he going to start one? No.
That sounds like a car in low fuel mode, to me at least. And, oh, there we go. Apparently we're using the pit assist in this division. That I was not aware of, but there we go. So into the pits comes Covzi, and that's then their time done for now. We've then got Mattia Di Campo on screens at the moment. They now head down towards the first Lesmo here. Let's see how they hook it up. So into the inside there, they were a little bit in the danger zone. They were a little bit wide of that apex, but they managed to gather it up on exit, which is the main important thing. Second Lesmo much better in terms of that line through there. And now just gaining that extra tiny little bit of a toe there from the AlphaTauri off to one side. That being of Elliott there. And now Mattia heads into the next couple of corners through the Ascari chicane. And then onto the exit here. Don't want to run over that white line, which they've not done. They've not invalidated the lap here. And now as they power down towards the Parabolica, how is this going to turn out for them? We will wait and see as now onto the brakes they go, down a few gears. And now as they power on through, they're going to try and V off the corner, as we've seen a lot of drivers doing then, rather than taking the big, long, natural racing line. And that's then 5th place for Mattia Di Campo, 119.224.
It's a lovely run. He got a purple last sector, so that's strong for him. Vincent about to start his lap. I was going to try and find Frankie, who's on his lap. He's finding himself currently in P8 for the Aston Martin. And Frankie, again, another mid-runner as he runs a little wide on the exit of the second chicane, dipping the wheels into the gravel, which you can push through on the exit of that turn and, you know, dip your tyres into the gravel and still have a good lap. But it isn't the most efficient way. That being said, still looking good. Needs to get this around the 53-ish. He's got a 53.5 and he's 7 tenths down. So not favourable for him as we switch over to Vincent, who is doing well. He's improved slightly, but not slightly enough. He needs to find a lot of time in the second sector. Around the first Lesmo, now second Lesmo, push it wide. You've got to use all that exit and risk the invalidation to gain the most out of it. Down towards Ascari S's. Is he improved more? It's 2 tenths, so this is somewhere around the regions of second place, which is where he needs to be. Again, the exit of the Ascari, a push as wide as you can, and he does, possibly a couple of inches more, but it's all risk and reward. Round the Parabolica we go. Keep it tight until the exit. Then find the straight line as we finally get into the 18.8. Wow, that's a time indeed. And Vincent can only find a 19.0. So critically, we have dipped deep into the 18.8, into the 18 seconds.
We certainly have, yep. So there we go then. PCF5 can get down there into the 18. and that's the important thing. And they've been able to put that time together whilst bathed in the Italian sunshine, which of course they were simply skimmed by the Italian sunshine in the previous lobby that we had. Now though, we're on board with Yannick. Very impressive first run earlier on. They are currently up on their time, but decide to go into the pits in the end. So there we are then, clearly not up enough. There's 4 minutes remaining, so they'll get one more attempt at this. And meanwhile, their teammate, that being Alex Berry, is on a lap at the moment. They come to the end of the first sector now, but they're a second down. So I'll focus away from them, and instead we'll have a look at the driver who is currently on screen at the moment, that being Dimitri Minic. They are currently 18 seconds up on their previous best. So that will get them down into the, well, it would get them into the 19s certainly, possibly the 18s if they can improve in this final sector here. And up towards the line they go. What is Dimitri going to be able to do? It's a 19.2, and usually that would be a pretty good time, but when everybody is within about a tenth of a second or so, as everybody from about sort of third, fourth, all the way down to 10th is, then all of a sudden you end up 2 tenths is not enough. You need to be able to make up more than that. And I suspect that having just completed a lap, that's going to be their session done. I think that will be the case. Meanwhile, from one Ferrari power unit to another, which means I'm going to watch it from the offboard, not the onboard, because that Ferrari engine sounds absolutely horrific. Through the Parabolica we go then, on board with Norby, and up towards the line then, and no, instead they decide to go into the pits. 3 minutes to go in the session.
He did. Norby was on a good lap, so unless he knows there's potential to get one more hot, powerful lap out to go all guns blazing, I'm surprised that he dipped into the pits. But you know, I ain't no engineer here, so they probably know more than I do because I'm only rubbish level racing. Is the honest answer. I can't race to save my life.
Well, I mean, at least you're honest. That's the main thing.
Exactly.
And no one can tell you you're bad now because everybody will just sort of go, oh well, he doesn't think he's very good anyway. Oh, my wings are like a shield of steel, etc., etc. I've just been watching on board with Sally, and unfortunately, much like a number of drivers that we've been on board with today, have decided to go into the pits at the end of their lap. So no improvement Sally this time round. Meanwhile, the driver just behind them, Jerry Van Bussel, is on an out lap. No, they're on a timed lap, in fact, but they have invalidated that lap. So that's going to be a non-starter there. Now then, Fion on an out lap at the moment. We've also got then, who's this that we're looking at? Virag Dominic, currently down in P13 in the other Alfa Romeo, the one that's the sister car's the one we've been paying an awful lot of attention to this session. And Dimitri Minic has retired from the session. They've done so in the pit lane, so there's not been an incident out on circuit, which drivers will have to avoid, so that's the main thing. And now then, their teammate flying the Alfa Romeo flag solo for these last couple of minutes of qualifying. Up towards the final corner we go now. And things are looking relatively good here at the moment, I think it's fair to say, for them, but just how good, we're going to see in a couple of moments' time. Very wide of the apex there as they head through the Parabolica, and now as they come back on themselves and V off the corner as much as they can up towards the line, it is not a bad attempt at all, a 19.1 that is likely going to be their finishing time. So the best that they will finish in this session is 5th place. Very good attempt there from Dominic.
Absolutely, it's a good attempt, but it's going to be, all eyes are going to be on Jeremy as he rounds the Parabolica. He's at the front of this train. Now you have to remember, track evolution is very strong in this game, so do you want to be this far at the front, and will there be that slight tenth here and there, or hundredths of a second more likely, that's going to make a difference being near the back, which I believe is where Vincent is. Fion is ahead, trying to do what he can. So we're actually going to jump board to Fion because he is in front and the main antagonist to it. He's down on his time by a tenth. So, and he's just invalidated as well. So back to the leader we go. It's a purple first sector. So he's looking to improve and extend his lead even further as the train of cars you can see on your screen on the right hand side of the track map. He's amongst the mid. So he's in a good position. But as I said, we're going to keep an eye on Vincent as the clock expires. Anybody who now crosses the line, that is it. That is the qualifying session over. So already Salah and Elliott will cross the line, and Jeremy is 2 tenths up. I said an 18.6 is tier 1 level. He is already looking to put in a tier 1 level lap time.
That's absolutely phenomenal.
I know. Round the final corner he goes. He just needs to stick this across the line, and he's gonna be nearly unbeatable.
Oh,
round the final
big
corner.
mistake. Sorry to interrupt you there, but as Jeremy sets a new fastest lap of 18.7, Vincent Nyquist has made a massive mistake. Headed out the exit of the Ascari chicane, so they have completely aborted this lap, and so they will start no better than 5th position here today.
That is critical indeed. Alex Berry has invalidated his lap, so that's not going to be good for him. His teammate, what can he do? He rounds the final corner. It's barely any adjustments to his second sector, but it'll be enough to put him in P8. And that will be the grid because Alexander has invalidated. There you go. Wow, an 18.7 from a tier 5 driver when the leaders and the top runners were doing 18.6s.
Absolutely, yeah, that's an absolutely astonishing level. Now, of course, what we don't have is the exact weather data that both sessions have put out because, of course, ambient temperatures and wind directions and things like that, air temperatures, track temperatures, all these sorts of things, all do play a factor in terms of how quickly the car can go. And therefore, it could be that potentially PCF1 were having a bit of a slower day as far as their weather was concerned. But there we are. It's still a very, very good time regardless. So to give you the full rundown of the results then, so Jeremy lines up on pole position with Alexander Johansson alongside. Then from third down, we have Roman, Mattia Di Campo, Vincent Nyquist, Norby, Fionn McKee, Yannick, Dominic, Kozzy, Alex Berry, Dimitri Minic, Maceo, Franek, Sally, Kinty, Jerry Van Bussel, Elliot, Joris, and then Sandro Van Sand.
Critically, Jerry Van Bussel down in P17. That just solidifies what we were talking earlier, that if he doesn't get his act together and doesn't get good results, he is definitely out of this championship. Though, talking of the championship, P5, P7, and P12 is where our top 3 are. So it definitely could spice things up. The gap between the rest of the drivers are going to be very interesting. It's really all to play for right now.
Certainly is, and I think that the main thing as well is that, of course, our championship protagonists are now all down in the middle of the midfield. They are all in a risky position as we open up onto a cloudy Monza. Ooh, could there be rain? But
honestly, we've been cursed with rain. God knows how many times.
Rain is never a curse.
No.
Rain
not in like a bad way. We just always get it. Let me just remind ourselves of Mexico, Japan, Australia.
Miami.
Actually fine. Yeah, Miami. We had rain, so there's 3. 3 out of the 6 races. Half of these races have been in the wet or have elements of rain. So it would not surprise me if this has an element of rain as well. Which, again, to be honest, as you mentioned, I would not be disappointed to have a little drizzle as rain as we're going 10 seconds before the start of the race. Quick prediction: who do you think is going to possibly win?
Well, if the messages in the chat are to be believed, there will be rain in this race. Apparently, it does show on the forecast. I'm going to now count us in, though, because we've got 5 red lights. Lights out and away we go, and it looks like a decent start there for the pole sitter. They've been able to get away quite nicely indeed, and now down towards the first corner we go, and things are very close indeed between all the drivers as they head down into turn number 1. It seems all clear for Jeremy up at the front, but further back we've got some tangling there between the drivers. Vincent Nyquist has gotten a penalty for corner cutting, and so has Dimitri Minic as well, in fact. And now Vincent under massive pressure. They've dropped massively down the field, down to P6, threatened by P7 now as well. If they don't get it right into the Della Roccia chicane, then it's going to be another loss in position. It is, in fact. And now the Ferrari of Norby is getting involved and sniffing around the back of this. Look at this. There's about 5 cars all occupying one piece of circuit here. Look at this. 3 wide into Lesmo number 1 with Fionn, Norby, and then one of the Alpines as well. I think that's Yannick there. And now Fionn just manages to get a nose ahead, and now will try and chase on after their teammate. But look at all of that in the first lap alone. And it's not even over just yet.
No, it's not even over. Yankee, just making a quick point, Yankee actually pushed a shove to get himself onto P4, has lost out major amount of positions. So he's in P9 right now, but he definitely will be investigated by the stewards later on. We're going up to Parabolica, and I don't think this is all over. Dimitri, yes, he's got a 3-second time penalty early on. We know he's a fighter. We know he's a racer. He's one that will definitely keep punching his way through, and he is very, very close. Another driver to point out is this man right here. Jerry Van Bussel started out in P18. He is up into P10, a start of his lifetime. Getting himself in a brilliant position as there goes the young Yannick. But he has to cut the corner, unfortunately, as he gets a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. And there's also Mercedes going out wide as well, as there is more action as Fion is now in danger by Jerry Van Bussel, who finds himself up and now in P8. He's gained 2 positions since we last spoke. Somehow,
Absolutely.
that Williams is strong.
Now, Williams is very strong. I was going to say in the build-up there, I thought that we were going to go into a formation lap because, of course, now, after various updates to the game, you can actually have a formation lap in multiplayer. It sounds bizarre that we didn't have it for a long time, but it can happen now. So I was expecting to have this moment to just talk things through. But as we see the cars all filtering down here, I would say that keep an eye out for the likes of Vincent and Alex Johansson as well.
Sorry.
Because, big incident there. Look at this, Dimitri getting caught in the field once again then. And, well, after that incident, that's them and Yannick down the order. So also their teammate Dominic as well. And Elliott is all the way off the back of the field as well. So I feel they may well have gotten involved in that. So not a good start for them. Just one thing that I'll touch on as well whilst we're talking here, whilst we've got DRS now enabled. So, oh dear, the shambles will now commence, I'm sure. Big lockup into turn 1 for Alex Johansson as Alex, Roman, Kinty, Sandro, Sally and Elliott, the only drivers in the field on medium tyres. Everybody else has gone on the hards, hoping to stay out long enough to then make it to the rain period. And that's then what they're all gambling on. And certainly the medium tyre runners are gambling on having that extra pace and being able to then utilise that extra pace to get themselves as far up the field as they can and hopefully keep those tyres alive by the time the rain comes. But yeah, look at this then. Jerry Van Bussel in a good position. Sorry, I'll just go quickly back to that point I was mentioning about Vincent and Alex Johansson. When we were looking at those final runs in qualifying, I took a moment just to have a look at those guys on the start-finish straight with the telemetry enabled, and they were hitting 219 miles an hour as they were headed into turn number 1. So they've gone for a low downforce setup. So those who were maybe a bit slower in qualifying might well end up having an absolutely storming race later on when the rain comes.
We have to wait and see. Just so you know, Jeremy went into the first corner on lap 1 in the lead. So somewhere these two have changed positions. So we've missed the early race lead change, sniffed under our nose. Cozzy finding himself in P5, so he's in a great position. He's running those hard tyres. He's not playing aggressive from the get-go, trying to wait for what we've been told is going to be rain. Whether that will unfold to be rain is going to be a question in itself, as they file through into lap 4 and oh, there seems to be a major change down into P13. There seems to be a major action happening there as both P12 and P13 are going side by side. So that will be Sandro getting ahead of Alex Berry. Alex Berry trying to fight off and defend as much as he can his position. But I don't think he's going to do too well as Joris is trying to get past. And they're going to have to file out for the first and second Lesmo. It's getting a bit feisty all around the track. I said this is a track full of overtaking.
Absolutely, yeah. And one driver who has now ended up coming a cropper and crashing out of this race on Curva Grande is Sally. They've left the session now. And that's their race run, and their teammate dropped down a number of positions there as all of that was going on between Joris, Alex and Sandro. So Mercedes having an absolutely terrible Monza here in PCF 5.
Absolutely. Who tell you who's running really close? It's going to be P3 and P5. They're all very close. And I think Cozzy's going to be the one eyeing up a position for P4. He looks to the inside. He nearly hits the rear end of Matty DeCampo. He's going to try and take this round the outside, which will allow him the inside line into turn 2. And he just makes it in time, locking up the front left. Now he needs a good exit because Matteo, if he gets a good exit here, will be able to make the run back, but he's a little too far back. So Kozzy has secured that position. That's P4 for him. And now he can try and close down on Roman and take the podium position.
I must say, that was a beautiful overtake from Kozzy there. People moan about DRS overtakes and things like that, but when you're around a circuit here with as little downforce as they're likely to be carrying, they've just gone straight round the outside, super deep into that turn number 1, and been able to keep it in between the white lines. Not only that, they've actually been able to hit the apex of the first turn, and therefore be completely ahead of their rival, Mattia De Campo, as they then head through the second part of that opening chicane, and have been in a great position to then just start driving away. It's a really fantastic move there, I think, from Kozzy. Meanwhile, though, if you can see that Kozzy and Mattia both having big flashing red lights at the back of their cars. Now, we've not got rain yet, so that means one thing. They have less than 10% of their ERS battery remaining. You compare that to the likes of Roman, Jeremy and Alexander Johansson at the front, and Roman we're seeing here closing in on the Red Bull, who also has DRS, so the two of them essentially nullifying their own advantage here relative then to the car in front, and there we go, into turn 1 they go, and they are as you were, but yeah, things very, very close indeed between them, and Roman, you must say, is going to be wanting to get this move done quicker rather than later, because they have those medium tyres. They want to get past Jeremy, they want to be able to then make the use of those tyres as quickly as they can, and then get themselves in the best position to then capitalise on the momentum that they've started as of last race, of course winning the Japanese Grand Prix.
Absolutely, you want to kind of get going. You're completely right in saying those medium tyres, they're going to fall off really quickly. So now or never is the mindset. Critically, I'm riding on board with Vincent Nyquist. Critically, he got a 3-second time penalty to his name. So he needs to really get up the order, because he's going to drop back down the order very, very quickly if he does not work fast. And Roman, he's looking a little bit closer this time. Heading up into Parabolica, already into the 2/10 sector. Round the Parabolica could go. He needs a good exit here, and he will get past Jeremy, which will mean from P1, he's going to go down the order. But it's a long race. It's a long race to go as Jeremy goes closer, closer, closer. Is that Red Bull going to fight? No. No fighting from him. He knows this is not the right time. He's going to go late into the first corner, locks up massively, and goes over the second chicane. He has to give that position back, surely, and he will. So Jeremy survives one more lap, and critically, Roman damaging his tyres.
Yeah, Roman there, not the smartest move, I think it's fair to say. They've also, I mean, it must be said, we know how powerful ERS is in this game, and without revealing the exact figures, they have over double the ERS available of Jeremy in front. They have been very, very conservative with their ERS, have Roman, and so they've got loads to deploy, and they're just not using it in the moments where they need to use it to get the overtakes done. So that's very confusing, but now with Jeremy in the position that they are, having had to defend in that first corner, or rather not defend, but be held up in that first corner by the car going up their inside, it means that they have lost that DRS gap now to Alexander Johansson in front, which means that unless they're able to reel them back in by the time they get to the detection point, the end of the straight here, and it's going to be very close indeed, there's only 0.03 of a second in it, then they will, no, they don't manage it. So now, that means on this start-finish straight, they are going to be a sitting duck with no DRS whatsoever.
Being 6/10 back, though, even without DRS, is going to be a massive lunge if you're going to go for it. We're going to stay with Roman down the straight. He does have that DRS flat open. You can see the Red Bull doesn't, and there you go. Just a little too far back, and then there you just saw another lockup from the Aston Martin. So, and
big oversteering moment as well.
He's not comfortable with that car. Another driver in danger as well is in P4, Kozzy. See that rear light? Remember what we said earlier, guys. If you're new to F1, that rear light means that 10% ERS, ERS being the little boost, that's being 1.5 seconds behind, and having a very, very feisty championship leader, Vincent Nyquist, on your rear end, who I'm not going to be surprised if he's going to try and make a move very soon as he rides right up the rear end of the Aston Martin, but not into Ascari. Not just, yes, he goes
mistake.
wide. Yeah, critically going wide and gaining, not actually gaining advantage, so he's all good there. But how much has this collapsed the opportunity that's available to him? And somehow, and I've just realised as well at the front, Alexander's dropped back into the, well, he's got back himself into the second, as again, what is Kozzy doing? I don't think he's got the grip, I don't think he had temperature, because now Vincent Nyquist is going to go down the inside, cut in front of the Aston Martin, not Aston Martin, sorry, Red Bull, and claim 4th place.
Yeah, things very close between them, though. He had a bit of a compromise run through that first corner, and now he is starting to pull away. He's making good use of the overtake button to be able to just get that distance up. And now, Campo and Vincent Nyquist has done very well here to be able to get themselves back up into a relatively good points-paying position here, because their main championship rival, of course, Fion, still languishing down in P8 at the moment, and not really making that much in the way of inroads towards those at the front. Of course, there is now a great big DRS train that has formed all the way really from Vincent down to Fion, and so therefore all the cars in amongst that really aren't able to get anything done. They're not able to get any overtakes happening, unless of course there's a big mistake from the car in front of them. It might be that if Fion is able to keep the pressure on Jerry Van Bussel in front, we might see that happen on this next lap. They have got a very small gap to the Williams in front, but equally so, the Williams has a very small gap to Mattia De Campo. So it all could come to a head here, and you can see here as well that the drivers are all using a different line through the final corner versus what they were doing in qualifying. In qualifying, they were trying to V off the corner as much as possible, and then in the race here, they're then trying to make as much use of the normal racing line as they possibly can. So there we are. That's a difference there between qualifying and the race here, but now we can see with Roman that, again, they're just not able to get close enough. Now, have they decided to go for that higher downforce setup, anticipating the rain that is to come? And that's maybe why they're not able to get onto the back of Jeremy here, because down the straights with DRS, they're only really gaining about 0.2 of a second or so.
Absolutely, and just a bit of note as well, Vincent isn't pulling away from Kozzy at great rates of knots. He's at 0.6 at the moment, so he's not closing the gap. There's over 1.5 seconds between himself and this battler at the lead. Of course, Vincent needs to pull 3 seconds. He's got the little penalty sign. You can see that next to him, which will be a 3-second time penalty to his name. So he needs to be careful, because he will fall down the order very, very quickly. And Fion does find a position. He's now up into P7, so that gap slowly closing. And I tell you who is closing, Roman getting himself a little bit closer this time. Unfortunately, not in a favourable situation, because Jeremy has DRS down this straight. So it might be an opportunity, but it will definitely have to be a lunge if he does so. He does eye up, he has a look, decides against it, because it's too much of a risk this early on. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would disagree with what Roman is doing here. If I was in Roman's position, with the amount of ERS they've got, certainly compared to then the driver in front, with the tyre advantage rapidly disappearing as well, they need to burn a huge amount of ERS on the start-finish straight, in addition to the DRS that they've got, to be able to get alongside and then try for a move into the first corner, and then just position the car nicely to then be able to make it such that the driver they've overtaken, that being Jeremy, if they do manage to get it done, would not be able to counter-attack. So I think this driving that Roman's doing at the moment is just a bit too conservative, because over time, all that's going to happen is that the hard tyre runners behind are going to get faster relative to Roman, and the hard tyre runner in front of them, of Jeremy, is just going to get quicker as well. So this is not the way that they will have wanted things to go and wanted things to pan out. But if they get themselves up towards the lead here, I think that Alex Johansson is either struggling or driving well within the limits of their car. It doesn't strike me as a driver that's trying to drive flat out at the moment. So that's either because of hesitation or because they are, they're trying to just manage the race, manage their pace, manage their tyres. As it is then, down into the first corner, and Roman didn't gain really anything at all down the start-finish straight that time, because now Jeremy, of course, has got themselves within a second. So, again, it's all about taking the opportunities where you can find them. Drivers who are attacking somebody who has more than a second's gap to the car in front, you need to get past that car as quickly as you can, because they don't have the DRS to defend themselves. So, as a result, you just get stuck in a train if you allow them to creep up to the back of the car in front. So there we are then, and now we're going to take a look at Fion, who's been able to make their way up here, get 2 positions despite being in this DRS train, and has been able to overtake Jerry Van Bussel and Mattia De Campo over the last couple of laps. Now they've got Cossi in their sights, And Cossi has been burning a lot of ERS to try and catch up to Vincent. Vincent has been doing the same as well. You can see that flashing red light on the back of the McLaren. But for Fion, they have been wisely making sparing use of that ERS as well. So they are getting themselves into a very, very nice position indeed. Vincent has almost gotten themselves within DRS distance of the car in front, but they are now hovering at nearly 0 ERS. So they are really in a weak position now versus the cars around them in that attempt to get DRS, and it's just not worked out for them, as now they get a bit of a reprieve though as Cossi dives into the pit.
Is this too early though? We've got rumours of the rain coming. Is this a little too early? The thing is, we don't know how true this fact is. We know this could be a complete mumbo jumbo that we've just been dished out, and we're sat here believing every single word. But it is so true in thinking like that. You have to think realistically. The rain hasn't come. It's lap 13 out of 27. We are in the pit window for the medium tyres. Okay, if you want to go hards and do a really early pit stop, it's quite early to do it. So you're better off doing it now. Get good run, good pace, because then the other drivers are going to start to think, well, this rain hasn't come yet, so might as well start pitting. And you've done that run early, built yourself up a good pace. Then when the rain does come, if it comes, bang, you're in a better position. But we're going to have to wait and see. You're going to have to wait and see as, once again, Roman getting himself ever so close. It's almost, as I like to say, between these two, Jeremy and Roman, it's like a relationship. But it's a very, very tense relationship. And we're just waiting from the outsiders. We're sitting out here going, when is that gonna break? And I don't think it's gonna be on this lap unless, as I mentioned, it's gonna be one hell of a lunge as they go down towards the first chicane. And once again, the relationship stays and does not break.
Yeah, there you are then. Big old tussle going on between these drivers. We've got some support in the chat for various drivers. Unfortunately, some support for Elliot, which is all the way down at the back of the order. Not unfortunate that they're supporting Elliot. You can support whoever you like, but just unfortunate that the driver you're supporting is at the back of the field. Now, in terms of the battles that we're seeing throughout this race at the moment, currently closest fight on circuit is either that battle for the top 3 positions, or it's for P4 between the two McLarens. You've also then got Mattia De Campo, Jerry Van Bussel still very close in behind Fion there, who is leading that charge up towards the back of Vincent Nyquist, who again has tried to burn all the ERS they possibly can to get onto the back of Roman in front and get the DRS from them, but it's just not working. It's not coming to them, and in the meantime, their teammate behind, who does have DRS, is able to just keep on saving their ERS as a result. So this is an uncomfortable place for them to be, and Maceo is also very close to Joris in front of them, but they are currently carrying a time penalty, so they will have to make that up at some point later on. It's at 2.5 tenths per second, and ooh,
I think I just saw a speck. I don't know if you can.
I'm seeing it.
Yes.
I'm seeing it. It's running down the body of the cars. When you go to the onboard view, when you go to the T-cam, that is rain confirmed. But the danger, of course, is if you go too early. And now the cars on the medium tyres might have to go early. They may have no choice in the matter. But for those who are, tempted to go early onto the wet tyres, onto the intermediates, then you need to wait until there's some standing water. Otherwise, the tyres are just going to overheat. You're going to spin. You're going to end up wearing the tyres out much more quickly than anybody else who goes onto them at the right time. So it's a balancing act. Now, obviously, the main indicators would be things like when Mark Priestley comes over the radio and says, here's a new strategy option, when the game declares that DRS has been disabled. These are all things which then can give you a good indicator that, yes, the track is ready now. But there is that sweet spot just before all of that happens, where you will then gain massive amounts of time on the cars around you if you're able to interpret it properly. Think years ago now to, I believe it was Silverstone, Sebastian Vettel still in the Ferrari, had an absolutely woeful race, but then all of a sudden, as the rain started to come down, managed to get onto the tyres at the right time, and then got on the podium, I believe, if my memory serves me rightly. So there we are. They've got to keep an eye on these fights then that we're seeing up and down the field. We've got then Alexander Johansson goes into the pits. Now, if they go onto intermediate tyres, I think that is way too early. And similarly, Roman also goes into the pits as well. So it might be that these medium tyres have just run their course and they absolutely have to go into the pits now.
But
and
Roman
it's intermediates on Roman. Yeah, Roman onto the Inters, and so that is a big roll of the dice there. Alexander is going to be ruining that decision, I think, if it turns out that Roman's gotten this right here, because of course, poor old Alexander Johansson, they have now got to make one additional stop here if the rain keeps on coming down. It is still coming down, it's still running along the bodywork of these cars when you go to the onboard, so never say never, it's not over just yet. And now, all of a sudden, Vincent Nyquist has suddenly decided to put their foot down. They've been able to break the DRS hold that their teammate have had on them for the last few laps, and have started to just start closing in ever so slightly on Jeremy in front. It's not by a huge amount, but it's enough. And now, as I say all that about them breaking away from their teammate, Fion has now responded, gotten back to within a second now, and using a little bit of ERS just to then make sure they stay within this DRS distance here to then be able to launch a counter-attack onto the start-finish straight. But all of their advantage has now gone. Vincent has been able to save up some ERS. Fion has burned a lot of their ERS. And it just means, again, this is very conservative driving, I think. Oh, look at this, and Kozzy off the road. That's not good at all.
I think he's gone into the rear end of, I think it was Alexander, I think he went into, actually. Because it was it was Alexander. So the leader of the race has just been pit maneuvered by Kozzy. But we're unsure to the reason why, because we've only just jumped into it. As into the pits goes Maceo, so he's going in. The rain is starting to visually now pick up. Now, when for a spectator, it visually starts to show, that's when we start to really think, okay, now this crossover is going to begin. But that, oh God, so that's Alexander's race, completely ruined. Is there any damage to that car? That is the question I'm going to have to ask. Can you see anything?
I cannot see anything, but oftentimes, as we've learned in the last year's game and this year's, as Norby's been able to get a move on Roman, so clearly these Inters not the right tyre here. They're just falling back now to cars with older tyres than them. But yeah, no visible damage, but you can.
I'm just going to draw your attention to the trunk front. I've just seen a timing board as Fion is going to make an early move onto Vincent, and he does make a move into Parabolica critically. Is this lungy move for the pit stop? No, it's not. But Vincent is ever so close to make a fight back, and clearly he's going to definitely go for it. As down around the inside, Vincent is going to make the move. They need to keep an eye on Matteo De Campo, because he could possibly get involved as well. Into the first chicane we go. Fion, I don't think is going to be done here. I feel he's going to get a good run if he can keep the traction as it slowly goes. But Matteo is going to have a little sniff. He's within nearly 3/10 of the driver ahead. But he's losing out of time, so no move is going to happen here, as everybody seems to be shuffling around the board. So are we losing... Oh, it is Jerry on the Inters. Is he losing out here?
Yeah. Just out of the pit lane for Jerry, and I think that this is certainly a much more convincing time to go onto the intermediate tyres versus 2 laps ago when Roman went on to those tyres, as did Sandro. And yeah, I mean, we've now got, rather than just streaks on the bodywork, we're now also seeing drops of rain settling on the bodywork of these cars as well. And that track is starting to look more damp, more slick, more reflective around certain parts of the circuit. And on the back straight in particular, just having a look at what the 2 McLarens are up to at the moment, it certainly looks that way. And DRS has been disabled, so I think that Jerry Van Bussel may have been able to get an absolute storming march here on the rest of the field here, because they have pitted at the right time. They've now caught massively onto the back of Norby through the Ascari chicane here. So I think that the new race leader may well end up being Jerry Van Bussel. Keep an eye on them as they head down now towards the Parabolica. Now, it might be that they come out just behind Jeremy. Jeremy obviously had massive track position benefit over Jerry here, so Jeremy might end up coming out ahead here, but Jerry is going to be coming down. I'm getting my Jerrys and my Jeremys mixed up here, but they are coming down at great speed. And look at this, they're going to overtake the McLaren. That's Fion. That's Fion overtaken then, coming out of the pits now by Jerry Van Bussel. That means then that Fion and Roman now displaced by Jerry Van Bussel, and some great pit strategy. I think that the likes of Vincent and Dimitri are going to be suffering now over the course of the rest of this lap. Same with Alex Berry as well. All those drivers having stayed out that little bit longer, and you can see that actually headed into the Della Roggia chicane on board with Alex Berry there. I was briefly. He just had to go super deep, was skidding and sliding all over the shop. So now then we can see that Jeremy is right up the back of the Alpine as well. And unlike what we saw a few laps ago with Roman, not losing time to the car in front. In fact, actually gaining time. And with DRS disabled now, it's all going to be down to your tyre grip and, of course, then your ERS state of charge as well, which is very good for Jeremy. Much better, in fact, than what we see for Alex at the moment. So, if I were Jeremy, rather, I would be trying to get past these two cars in front as quickly as possible, because then that means that they don't get interference from dirty air, which, of course, is reduced in this year's cars, but not to the degree that it's completely gone.
Absolutely, and Dimitri is going to be the last driver to pit for the Inters. This now opens up the door for Jeremy. Vincent in the pits. He's coming to the pit exit, so he's going to be side by side coming to the exit, but it's clear as daylight for Jeremy. He's definitely going to be comfortably in the lead, but Jerry Van Bussel...
Look at Jerry Van Bussel!
Yeah, we ruled him
I'm
out.
sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. I was going to say, we ruled him out quite early. Look where he is, P3. He splits himself right in between the two McLarens. And now Jeremy is definitely going to have a run onto Vincent. Round the Curva Grande we go. Will he make the lunge into Della Roggia chicane? Look to the inside? No. He decides, not yet. But with a great exit, he could do this into Lesmo 1 instead, which has been seen and done before. But the tyres of Vincent, the more Jerry waits, the more Vincent tyres get up to speed. And you remember, it's
another
a bit
3-second time penalty.
That's 6
another
seconds.
Big time penalty for Vincent Nyquist. That would drop them all the way down to where Alexander Johansson is at the moment, if not even further down the order than that. That is a massive, massive implication in this race. Now, Vincent needs to keep it on the black stuff. They need to stop overstepping those track boundaries. And now then, Jerry Van Bussel has they have the draft on the McLaren. They have more ERS available than the McLaren does. I think here, headed into turn number 1, we might be seeing a good little scrap between these two, because it certainly seems as though Vincent does not look very comfortable on these tyres. And it's like what I was saying earlier on. Vincent and Alexander Johansson, they both were setting time incredibly high top speeds down the start-finish straight, headed down towards turn number 1 at the speed trap. So... they are clearly not running very much in the way of downforce here, and yeah, big lunge from Fionn, but didn't come off for them in the end. And Jerry then gets to live to fight another day, and so crucially does Vincent Nyquist.
Yeah, I don't think this lunge is done. Fionn's right on the rear end of Jerry. He's going to have a look into the Della Roggia chicane, decides against it. So don't get me wrong, Jerry was eyeing up Vincent, but I don't think he was looking at his rear view mirror all too much, because Fionn has crept up the rear end and starting to shove Jerry. Now, we know Fionn pitted roughly around the same time as Jerry. I think it was Jerry pitted before him. So 1 lap fresher tyres, but Fionn's kicked them up. He's got some heat into them, and he has the pace. So is Fionn's setup, which is going to be the question here, better suited? Now, in terms of championship as well, just to remind you, Fionn will retake this championship, assuming nothing else will happen, as they round the Parabolica. It's looking good. It's looking favourable. But is it going to be even more as we head down the start-finish straight we go, and that's not a good exit from Fionn.
Certainly not, no. They're now about half a second back on Jerry Van Bussel. Look at this behind. Mattia Di Campo going up the inside of Roman here, and then into turn number 1 they go. Roman overtaken by the Haas in their Aston Martin, and their early gamble for intermediate tyres has not paid off. I suspect when there wasn't enough standing water to keep those tyres cool, they've ended up doing some wear and some damage to them, and now, in addition to all that damage, they're 3 laps older than that which we see on the cars in front and around them. So that's a shame for them. Alexander Johansson as well is doing an absolutely fantastic job so far, it must be said, of keeping going on these hard tyres that are 6 laps old. Kinty as well on 4 lap softs, Maceo on 5 lap mediums, Cozzy on 6 lap mediums, just coming out the pit lane, in fact, is Cozzy, having put those mediums on, so they may well have been jeffed, as the community likes to say. And then Dominic, who just passes them now at the pit lane exit on soft tyres as well. So could be that these drivers have said, oh no, and then Dominic going straight on at turn number 1 there. Absolutely not getting the braking right, whether that's all to do with the tyres they're currently racing. And
Jerry's gone wide, and Fionn's just taken 3rd place off him. That is so critical. Unenforced error by Jerry, and Jerry just... He didn't find his braking zone through the Ascari S's, carrying too much speed on the exit, actually touches the gravel, so An easy open door for Fionn, and now Fionn can put his attention right onto his teammate and his championship contender, who he knows he's going to take that away.
Yeah, that's absolutely crucial for the championship lead, and then also crucial, of course, is the gap to these cars behind, because 6 seconds, when you've got several cars all in a train like this, that's going to cause some massive damage to Vincent Nyquist and their point-scoring ability in this race here. If everybody is able to stay where they are right now, then it means that they will go down to 6th position, whereas then their main championship rival, Fionn, of course, as you mentioned, will retake the lead of the championship by taking 2nd place. And then that's, of course, unless there are any more penalties that need applying that we're not aware of just yet. So through the Lesmos they go then, and Fionn has been able to catch some time up to their teammate here over the course of this and the end of last lap when they first passed Jerry Van Bussel. It was about 1.2 seconds between the pair of them, in terms of between the two McLaren drivers, I should say. Now it's about 6.5 tenths of a second, and they are on very similar ERS levels, because as you can, well, I was about to say, as you can see, there's and a big slide there for Vincent Nyquist as well. Now, whether that was a little bit of desync on my part, I'm not entirely certain. A little bit of a network issue, perhaps, because the gap has stabilized. It's not massively come down or anything, as you would expect from a big slide like what I just saw. So, probably just a little bit of packet loss on my part. So, so nothing to worry about for the Vincent fans, other than that 6 seconds worth of time penalties.
Yeah, Jerry's actually closed up really nicely after his mistake. He's down to 0%. You can see just on his screen, there you go, little red bar. He's got no ERS left. He's used it all, and critically, he made a good comeback. He's put himself in a great position to put himself back into the fight with this with 2nd and 3rd. But critically, he knows now he's in a position where if someone creeps up behind him, which Matteo, I feel, will definitely want to try and put his foot down as early as possible, he will go for it, as there's a DNF for retirement for Alexander. Which is, again, another point I want to make. It's so unfortunate for Alexander. He was 2nd running in this race, and just not pitting has cost him dear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, rather pitting, but pitting onto the wrong type of tyre. It's a big old shame, but clearly those mediums were just at the end of their life, and they just could not go any longer. They cried no more. And then 3 laps later was the time to do it. So if they had not gone for the gamble, gone for the hard tyres, then make sure that they would get to the crossover point in terms of the weather, then they could well be up in the top flight positions at the moment, and that would then obviously make Vincent Nyquist's day even worse than where it currently sits at the moment, because they'd then be going down to looking to around sort of P8, P9 at the end of this race if there were another 2 drivers in front of them. But as it is, we've got this fight here where Jerry is getting incredibly close all the time to Fionn, but just not close enough. Again, we've got some, I want to say we've got some conservative driving going on here, because drivers are keen not to end up having a tangle, and so they're not going for the big exciting moves that we are so used to seeing here in PSGL. But there we are then, so things as they were. Now at this point, Fionn knows, of course, that they just need to stay within 6 seconds, and they get a position over Vincent, and they can therefore get that championship lead back. But if they do so, then, well, it's always better, of course, to be even closer to the driver that is going to get the penalty. In fact, the best thing is, of course, to be in front of them, because then that means if you're in a championship battle with them, as they are, in fact, then it means that they will be able to just, they'll be able to send them even further down the order and score even more points over them, which, of course, is what points mean prizes, So, as it is then, Joris gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane and then retires from this session as well. So potentially there's been an incident somewhere around the track there for them, which has then meant that they've gone, do you know what? No, we're just going to retire now. But there we are. So they are out of this race. We've got Alexander Johansson, Kozzy, Yannick, and Sally all out of this race at the moment, and Dominic as well. Dominic retires in the pit lane. And they also on a set of soft tyres, so going all the way to the end was not an option, certainly not in these weather conditions as we are now. The penultimate lap of this Grand Prix, Jeremy has led a very convincing race today, and something which I think they can be very proud of indeed. And a couple of really great recovery drives, though, have been from Fionn and from Jerry Van Bussel. Vincent, of course, has had a relatively good run, but have picked up those penalties where the cars behind them have not, whilst travelling at relatively similar speeds. And then, of course, Vincent has also then had the benefit of starting higher up on the grid than these drivers as well. So Fionn and Jerry currently looking on for one of my picks of driver of the day if things stay as they are. But, you know, we've still got a lap and a half to go here, so anything could happen as the Red Bull of Jeremy continues to just sit nice and happy in the front of this field. 1.3 seconds, 1.4 seconds now, the gap between them and Vincent Nyquist up at the front. And things are moving in the right direction for a Red Bull win for the first time this season, I believe. I may be wrong there on the stats, but I'm fairly certain that that is the case. We had Aston last time out, we've had Alfa Romeo, and we've had McLarens, I think, if I'm right. So there we go. Luke Etheridge saying evening all in the chat. Hello, Luke. So as we go back to the action then, onto the final lap of this Italian Grand Prix here at Monza, it's turned into an inclement weather session, and into the first corner we go then. Fiona McKee is chasing on after their teammate Vincent Nyquist, who in turn is trying to chase after Jeremy Glinner and is hoping and praying that they can get onto the back of the Red Bull and then also get 6 seconds on them. That's really the only way they're going to be able to win this race. It's unlikely, but stranger things have happened, I suppose. And now then, Fionn is getting very close indeed to their teammate, just 3.5 tenths to get the gap now as they head through the Della Roggia chicane and now on towards Lesmo number 1. The gap will probably go up through these next couple of corners. It relies on downforce and good grip, and grip is hard to come by in these wet conditions. And so as they come around the second Lesmo here, we can see then that things are still very close indeed between the pair. And now as they head down towards the Ascari chicane, it's still very much advantage Vincent on the circuit, but off of it, in the steward's room, it will be advantage Fionn with this gap of less than 6 seconds, less than about half a second in fact, as it is. Coming out the final proper couple of corners then, we've just got Parabolica to go. And attention will have to go now to Jeremy Glinner, because in the Red Bull, in changing conditions, they have kept their cool. They have been able to keep their head about them. And coming round the Parabolica, the Alboreto curve up towards the line, Jeremy Glinner wins the Italian Grand Prix. Vincent Nyquist comes home second on the road, but then will drop down to P6. Oh, no, actually, may not drop down to P6 by the end of this one. Yeah, no, it's P5, in fact. So they've just been able to miss out the indignity of P6 there from Roman. But now then, Dimitri Minic will come around the corner as our next driver on the road to finish. They will finish P7, but they will have time penalties, of course, as well. So does Norby behind, so it's going to be a question really as to how far up the order Alex Berry goes. Will it just be P8 or will it be P7? It's just P8, so Alex Berry inherits that position there. And Sandro manages to get P9 as a result of Norby's penalties as well. Franek now comes across the line sideways and hits the wall, but is now across the line at least, so their race is done. Maceo will then be the next driver to come across the line. Kinty has crashed on the exit of the Ascari chicane, of all places, on the final lap. So Kinty, insult to injury there, and they will be retiring from, and there they go, they've retired from this race on the final lap. Maceo and Elliott, the last drivers who will come across the line then. Elliott carrying no penalties, Maceo carrying some. Will Maceo be carrying enough penalties whereby Elliott will be able to finish off of the back row of all of the finishing drivers? We will wait and see in a moment. They're doing a bit of a weave though, so that's going to lose them time, and that may well have even lost them the position there. Across the line they go, and that's them down in 12th place.
Jeremy putting in what is a brilliant drive, qualified nearly 2 tenths faster than everybody on the field. But hats off goes to Jerry Van Bussel, starting P18, that man did. P18, finding his way all the way up to P3. What a run. And I've always said I need to find a new Kowalski. Now, if anyone who knows that name from any of the other series and know that driver to be a professional Xbox player, wow. That man goes from 19th to 1st, and Jerry has done exactly that. So the orders stand as Jeremy taking the win, starting on pole, ends up for the win. Fionn making his lot of positions from P7 of Jerry Van Bussel, again, it was P17 actually. Matteo Di Campo P4, Vincent Nyquist, even a crossing line, technically speaking, in 2nd. He does drop down to 5th. Roman going in 6th, Dimitri in 7th, Alex Beery in 8th, Sandro Van Sand in 9th, Norby in 10th, Frenick going 11th, Elliott finding himself in 12th, while Maceo does actually fall behind in 13th. Kinty retiring at the end of the last lap, Joris in 15th. Dominic in 16th. Alexander Johansson, after a brilliant race time in P2, finds himself 17th. Kozzy in 18th. Yannick Van Es in 19th. And Salah, unfortunately, finding himself last and not where you want to be.
Absolutely not. No, that's not the way that you want to finish out a race, especially not the Italian Grand Prix while driving a Ferrari. That's a cardinal sin. He'll be banned from Italy now as a result. But there we go. So that is the end of the Italian Grand Prix. But it's not the end of PSGL's tenure in Italy itself. We will be going to the wonderful circuit of Imola next time out, and yeah, that was a fantastic race from most of the drivers. I think it's fair to say. Some of the drivers maybe will have thought that is a race to forget. And one to simply put on the record books and then go on to the next one. But yeah, that was an impressive drive from Jeremy, I think, and especially from Fionn and from Jerry as well. I mean, great drivers who've been able to get themselves all the way up the order and onto the podium, despite the tricky situation that they ended up landing in after that qualifying session.
Absolutely, and it's not an easy track. Well, it's an easier track to overtake, but when it's also the biggest track where DRS trains are the most known, and the drivers coped well with it. We saw that drivers were taking advantage of the start-finish straight, particularly. We didn't see many moves through Curva Grande, which I'm slightly disappointed on, because it's always a spectacle to see a move through the Curva Grande and then ending up in the Della Rocce chicane and nobody deciding to risk it through the Lesmos. But as mentioned, we're going to Imola, a track that is a bit of a Marmite track to drive. I am definitely one that hates it. But you guys should. Your face says it all. I do not like Imola. I can't drive it. I really cannot drive it. There are too many corners where you brake mid-corner and it just screw. He's gone. He has gone. He is disagreed with everything I just said. But it's all personal choice. It's all personal choice.
No, a personal choice is the type of bread you get. You insult Imola and that's oh dear, oh dear. Well, I mean, each to their own, I suppose. But there we are. Then Imola, it's a roller coaster or a racetrack. We're going to get to see all sorts of action going on there, I'm sure. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. It's been absolutely lovely to have you company this evening. Sorry about all of the shambles at the start with qualifying sessions being called off after halfway through them and all this sort of a thing. I'm sure that we'll get the rules tightened up on that sort of a thing, and we'll have some idea as to how that situation resolves itself going forward. But with that all being said and done, then that has been your Italian Grand Prix at Monza, the Temple of Speed. I have been Daniel Gilligan, and I've been very, very lucky to be joined by Rhys Gregory this evening. Thank you very much for watching. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega and Grid Rival, proudly supporting PSGL.